So here we are back over in engineering world. I've put on my Josh hat and now I'm working here in the mechanical engineering assembly. And you can see that we've had to make some changes to this. The circuit board, for example, has had to grow a little bit in order to put the proper number of sensors under each button. And also we've moved the screw bosses in between some of those just because there was no room for them in the corners. Otherwise we were going to have to grow the unit too much. And so we have to make some changes to this. We're going to have to move our screw bosses to the new locations based on the new circuit board layout. But we also need to now accommodate a door, right? We have the door. We know where the door is going to be roughly. And so we can go ahead and model that in. Now, we are not going to go all the way to the extent of creating a full-on engineering assembly here. That would be way beyond the scope of this training series. This is an intermediate series, not an advanced manufacturing series. But I think we are going to build something that looks very much like the final product, and you'll get the idea, and you could always build on this knowledge in the future. So the first step here is actually, I want to go ahead and build the battery door because we don't have a battery door represented here yet, and it's going to help us visually as we develop the rest of the components here. So what we want to do is open up this bottom housing part, and just like we've done in the past, I'm going to do a file save as, save a copy, not save over the original, and then we're going to save this not as bottom housing, but as battery door, S4. And then we can close this guy up. And yes, we can save changes to it. That's fine. We'll go back to our folder, find that battery door file we just created. I'm going to drag it, and this time instead of just dragging and dropping it straight in and then having to constrain it in place, watch this. Let's make sure that my origin point is visible by going to View and find my origins. So I'll see that blue origin point right there. And then I'm going to jump back over to my folder, and this time when I drag it in, I'm going to drop it right on top of that origin point. And when I do that, it's automatically going to snap it there and put it in exactly the right place, so I don't have to reposition that anymore. And in the future, if you want to drop multiple files in and have them all land in the origin, you can shift-click multiple files and drag them and drop them straight on the origin, and it'll put them all in the right place. Just so you know that. It's a nice little shortcut. So let's open up that battery door in a new window, and since it's the battery door, it actually doesn't need any of this other stuff that we created for the bottom housing. So let's just delete all of that stuff. We'll go all the way back to the beginning of our document, delete all these sketches that we created. Now we can save that. And the first thing is let's right-click on our ID Master Model Import feature and go to Edit Feature. Now in there, right now, we are only bringing in surface bodies, and I think that's usually a good idea. But with a master model, sometimes you might also want to bring in unabsorbed sketches, which we definitely want to do in this case, because that's going to give us the sketch we need to trim this with. So let's open that up. And now we have our unabsorbed sketches in addition to the surface geometry. And really the only unabsorbed sketch that I need actually is the battery split in this case. So I'll just make that visible for the moment. And now let's actually turn this into something, and it's going to be really fast. Now let's go to the top plane first of all, and I'm going to draw let's do a center rectangle. And it can be any old center rectangle as long as it's bigger than our product, right? Just needs to be nice and big, something like that. Exit this. Now, you might think that the best way to make this into a solid would be to go to my surfaces, create a planar surface with my rectangle, and then I could use my trim surface command, do a mutual trim, and trim this to that, and then keep these sections and hit OK, and then we would end up with a solid chunk. And that does work. But there's actually a cleaner way that will be more robust in the long term. It's going to give us the same result in the short term, but later on when we want to make changes, it's actually a little bit cleaner. So the quicker way to do it even is to go to Features, Extrude Boss, select this guy, and instead of blind, I'm going to go up to Surface. Click on my surface, and it's just going to fill in that area right up to the surface. Hit OK, and there in one feature, we've created a solid body ready to use. Really nice. Now we can shell this out, clicking on this top face to get rid of it. I'm going to set my shell thickness to 2 millimeters, and we'll hit OK. And that'll shell that out. And then finally, we'll just do an extrude cut using our curve that represents our battery door, let's make sure that the arrow is pointing to the side that we want to delete, and it is. If it weren't, by the way, we would click this flip side to cut thing, so it would flip to the other side. But anyway, it's pointing out. That's what it should do. Hit OK. And now we have just a battery door. Now, there's a surface here that we can hide to get that out of the way. But the solid body is the one we care about, and that's our battery door. Let's apply a material to that. I'm going to grab my solid materials and just grab something that's really visible, nice yellow color, and make our entire part that yellow color. We'll close this up, go back to our main assembly, and now we can see our battery door in place, ready to use, and that's going to be a great visual aid for us as we start to model the bottom housing of the final product.